Hey, good evening. I'm Jack Criss. This is the Greater Jackson Business Beat TV show on Local 98, the only locally produced business show that covers local entrepreneurs and business people. We're at the University Club, the top of the Regions Plaza building downtown. Great episode tonight. We're going to be coming back with Hayes Dent, talking politics. Stay with us. We'll be right back. And hello, welcome to Greater Jackson Business Beat TV. I'm Jack Criss. We are in the Regions Plaza building in downtown Jackson, and we are very pleased to be joined by actually an old friend of mine, Mr. Hayes Dent. And Hayes, you wear a lot of hats and you've had a lot of titles over the years. You've run for office, you've been a political consultant, you've been a lobbyist. What's the current hat?
Well, the current hat, I think, is the guy who spends a lot of time helping mom out with kids. We've got an 8th grader, a 6th grader,
that's
a
4th
grader, and that takes a lot of time. But right now, I'm heading up a company called Hayes Dent Public Strategies, which is primarily a lobbying business. We do a lot of public affairs. And then we're getting into a lot of different business issues because of capital formation and that sort of thing.
Well, look, we want to have you on, or wanted to have you on primarily today to talk about the historic, I would say, elections of last week. Mm-hmm. It's been almost a week to the day now of this taping. You're a Republican. That's no secret, I guess. You work with parties of all stripes. But let's talk about what happened last week.
Yeah, in my day job, Jack, I work with Republicans and Democrats at the Capitol and throughout state government, and so I think the election last week was a clear message, but I don't think it was a clear message for Republicans to claim they had a mandate.
Right.
Okay, what I saw at least from 30 plus years experience in politics was the people in this country telling Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi, you've gone too far to the left. The spending right now in this country is so far out of control that it's hard to imagine the kind of money that is being spent right now in Washington, D.C. And so while the Republicans were clearly the beneficiary, we had a big election in 06. We've had 3 big elections in a row. 06 was big. 08 elected the first African-American president, and then this election. But the message from this election, in my opinion, is that government is too large and government has lost touch with Main Street. And that's what I saw last week.
But Hayes, you could have said that 10 years ago. I mean, you could have said that during the Bush administration, and a lot of conservatives and libertarians did. What has tipped the boiling point? I mean, you've got this Tea Party now all of a sudden, which has become a major force. Now, I don't think they did quite as well as many people expected, and some are even saying, some commentators are saying Sarah Palin may have shot herself in the foot. She ticked off Karl Rove. But we've never seen the anger like we're seeing it now. But government spending has been growing for years.
I think it's for 2 reasons. One, I think the financial bailout scared people to death, and mainly because people don't understand it. I mean, if you don't know what a credit default swap is, you don't know what took place. And I'm sort of in that boat, quite frankly. I mean, there are people I have talked to in Washington and New York, Jack, that are very smart people who don't understand what happened. And they, and it was a mortgage bubble for sure. It was a housing bubble, but the financial crisis scared people to death, and then this government takeover of health care scared people to death. The ironic thing about the government takeover of health care is that health insurance companies are going to benefit, private health insurance companies are going to tend to benefit very nicely from this health care agreement as well. So it's not a complete public takeover, if you will. Private companies will still be used going forward. And of course, none of the health care provisions are even in place yet. You hear a lot of people out there saying, my rates are going up. Well, your rates are going up for different reasons. It's not going up because of Obamacare. And so those are the 2 drivers, in my opinion, that really, look, I believe America is a center-right country. I think that typically Americans as a populace, all 300 million of us, we've all got different political views. But as a country, I believe we're a center-right country. And we had a group of people in Washington that took spending to a new level. And I think just intuitively people knew that something was wrong. They just, I think people sensed it. Yeah, as far as the Tea Party goes, I joke and tell people I was a Tea Party guy 17 years ago. I mean, you were too.
Libertarian,
When I ran for Congress 17 years ago, I proposed to cut congressional pay 10% a year until we could produce a balanced budget. Those are the kinds of provisions that Tea Party people would love to have today. It is going to be interesting to see how the Republican Party and the Tea Party works together going forward. People when they talk about earmarks, for example, I'm a guy who believes in earmarks, and let me tell you why. I want the budget to be low. I want our budget to be small, but I want Thad Cochran and Roger Wicker and Greg Harper and Stephen Palazzo. I want people like that to decide where money's going to be spent in Mississippi, as opposed to a bureaucrat at the Federal Highway Administration.
Well, let's talk about Mississippi, because Taylor's out. There were some shocks here. Anything really hit you out of left field with this election?
Look, Stephen Palazzo is a good friend of mine. I mean, he's a member of the legislature. We're both veterans. We care a lot about veterans issues. I was a little surprised that Stephen won. I mean, was the voter intensity. I was down there the week before the election helping out with the campaign, and I started picking up a little on it. I talked to people who were Republicans who said they'd voted for Gene for 20 years. People in central Mississippi who were Republicans voted for Sonny Montgomery for a very long time because he was a good congressman.
Right.
And he did the job that people expected him to do in Washington. And to a degree, that's kind of the way Gene was. But the voter anger this time was enough. And, let's face it, Gene was always kind of skating on thin ice. I mean, that congressional district's one of the most Republican in this country.
Benny Thompson, there were some numbers being spun that Marcy was, being upset in the making. I never thought so.
I tell people, you mentioned all the hats I wear. I'm a jack of all trades, master of none for sure.
Yeah.
The one thing I know more about, in my opinion, than anything or anybody is the 2nd Congressional District. I understand it. I can tell you the precincts.
We spend time in the Delta, you and I both.
That's right.
Yeah.
I can tell you which precincts you can look at and who's going to win and how bad the election's going to be. I thought that Benny did about what he was going to do. Those polls were never close, Benny has got a control over that congressional district. And it's a sad thing because the district's in worse shape today than it was 17 years ago. Not that that's all Benny's fault, but he certainly has been more worried about racial issues than he has been about development issues.
Hayes, you know Governor Barber. I haven't spoken to him in a number of years, but he's still a popular governor.
He's a big fan of yours.
Well, I hope so. I hope he watches the show.
Yeah.
He's going to be moving on. Where's he going? I mean, everybody's got a theory. He's running for president.
Sure.
The RNC, they want him back. He's going to retire, go to D.C., become a lobbyist, or go back into lobbying. What's he going to do? What are you hearing?
Let me tell you, I was Haley's campaign driver in 1982 when he ran for the U.S. Senate against a guy named John Stennis.
Yep.
So that was 28 years ago, and prior to that, we were both members of the First Presbyterian Church. Both still are. Haley is the most capable man I've ever been around in my life. If Haley wants to run for president, and I think that he and Marsha Barber are going to spend some time together over the next couple of weeks and really make that decision. It's not like saying I'm going to run for governor. It's not like saying I'm going to run for Senate. It is a game changer, to use a popular phrase, for your life. It's a life changer. And so I think that he and Marsha are going to have to decide what's best for their family. But, look, Haley could be commissioner of the NFL. He could be the head of the U.S. Chamber. He could be the Secretary General of the United Nations. Whatever he does next, he will do just like he's done for the last 30 or 40 years, and he'll excel at. And if it's running for president, look, a guy from your home state, from your home church, who you care a great deal about, who is capable of being president. Do I want him to run? Of course I want him to run for president. But that's a decision that he and his wife and family will have to make. But the people around him who are close to him, certainly, we watched the president, the office of president is a leadership position, and he exhibited under the oil spill and Katrina leadership like we've never had in Mississippi and anywhere in the region for that matter. And so I think he'd be a great president.
So you'd hire him if he wanted to work for you, Hayes?
I would absolutely hire him.
All
No
right.
question about it.
In the remaining time we've got, tell us kind of a nutshell, standing on one leg, your business. What do you do? Who can you help? How can people get in touch with you if they want that help?
Yeah, well, we're like I said, by day, a lobbying and public affairs company. We represent we represent Fortune 100 companies in Mississippi. We represent small businesses who are based in and around the Jackson area. We represent all sorts of different businesses in our lobbying and public affairs. We help people do business with government, people who want to go in and begin, the government, like it or not, in Mississippi is the biggest business in our state.
Yep.
And so doing business with them is clearly an option for businesses out there. And so we do that. I work very closely with the New Market Tax Credit Program at the U.S. Department of Treasury. We're building grocery stores right now around Mississippi. We have a partnership with Save-A-Lot grocery stores. We're doing that. We're helping AMR relocate their corporate headquarters here in Jackson. And so work on a lot of different issues that I hope become more and more concentrated around capital formation. Mississippi is the poorest state in the country, and for us to succeed, it's interesting to me, Jack, how we have people talk about the fact that we're the most generous people in the country, and we rank right up there at the top amongst charity and all this other sort of thing, but we're at the bottom for income, okay? What we've got to have in Mississippi is we've got to have more capital. When I'm in Texas working in business, I'd say for every couple of guys in the Jackson metro area in Mississippi, there are 100 to 150 guys that are hot investor, entrepreneur types in places like Dallas and Austin. I think Nashville and Atlanta and other places are exactly the same. We've got to foster some of that here. So we've got to bring investment capital into the state. And those are the kind of things that interest me going forward in terms of a lot of what I'm doing.
When you do that, get Local 98 Greater Jackson Business a couple of grants. Will you do that?
That sounds great.
Money we don't have to pay back.
That sounds
Hayes
great.
Dent, pleasure, good friend, and always good to see you, and thanks for coming on the show.
Great seeing you.
Stay
Great
with
to
us.
be with you.
We'll be back here at Greater Jackson Business Beat. Thanks.